Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. My name is Matthew. Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of Beyond the Lines. It's the show where we get an opposition fan's view when it comes to previewing Newcastle's next game. Now, this Saturday, 8 p.m, it's the game Newcastle fans worldwide are calling the Triple D Classic, the Damien Duff Derby. And to help me preview that game, I am joined by a massive Fulham supporter, a contributor to the Fulhamish Podcast. It's the beautiful, it's the brilliant Dom. How are you doing, mate?
Great intro, mate. Not doing too bad, mate. Obviously, we've had a bit of an upturn in form recently. We've obviously win at Leicester, a draw against Liverpool, and a draw against Brighton. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. And it's actually I think it's pretty much on the exact same time as it was 2 seasons ago in that exceptionally boring 0-0 draw at St James's Park. But no, I'm looking forward to it. Like your season, obviously, as you will well know, it's been very inconsistent. So it's hard for us to know, and hard for us to gauge sort of what Newcastle team we're going to be coming across on Saturday evening.
Yeah, definitely, mate. We'll get on to all that lovely stuff. But first and foremost, mate, obviously Fulham back in the Premier League after 1 season away. You've sort of answered it a little bit there, but how are you finding it so far?
Obviously, when we started the season, it looked like we were destined to go straight back down again like it was 2 years ago. But I think ever since we sort of got some competent defenders in on deadline day, like Tosin Adarabioyo from Manchester City, Joaquin Anderson, who's sort of pretty much taken over our captain's armband from Tom Kearney recently at centre-back, we seem to be a lot more steady at the back. I think, we seem to be looking like a Premier League team who can compete in this division, unlike 2 years ago, where we just looked like we were destined for the drop from minute one. And I think that we're sort of finally finding our feet in this division, which we never did in 18-19. So it's good to see, but again, we're not out of trouble at all. We're still definitely in trouble, and going away to Newcastle, it's a game where we'll be looking to get something from the game. Whether we'll be looking to win the game will be a different matter. Obviously, we couldn't get the win against Brighton on Wednesday night, but for me, this is a game where we should definitely be looking up to at least get a draw.
Yeah, and I would echo that, mate. With the way Newcastle have played this season, our results have been very much inconsistent, but our performances have been pretty bad all the way through. So I would be looking for something if I was a Fulham fan. But the connection there, you mentioned 2 years ago, there's a connection, there's a few connections, but we'll talk about Scott Parker, former Newcastle United captain for a couple of seasons, ended up at Fulham, finished his days there, and took over from Ranieri a couple of years ago. Couldn't stop them from getting the drop, but the Cans, they kept their faith in Scott Parker. He rewarded them with promotion through the playoffs, and now he's doing an okay job at the moment. What do you make of Scott Parker's job so far as a Fulham supporter?
He's definitely sort of come on leaps and bounds, I would say, post-lockdown, and especially this season. There was points, even after the first 2 games post-lockdown, where we lost to Leeds and we lost to Brentford. And everyone was like, we could finish outside the top 6 here, let alone go for automatic promotion. And there has been always questions over Scott Parker, but I actually kind of think the way he sets his teams up kind of suits being the underdog as we are in the Premier League right now, as opposed to when we're in the Championship, expecting to dominate possession, expecting to play beautiful football and score all these goals. I think actually us having less of the ball in the Premier League this season has probably worked in Scott Parker's favour, and he is essentially learning on the job. Really, he had 1 season at the under-18s, under-23s at Tottenham, and then he came to us and was a coach. And so it is kind of learning on the job, but you can see the improvement. And one thing I will give Scott Parker is there will be games where you'll see questionable tactics or questionable substitutions, but when in the big games when it has mattered, so in the playoff semi-finals, in the playoff final, even that game against Liverpool, for example, even going away to Leicester, it feels like in big games he does seem to get his tactics spot on for individual games. It's just sometimes across a period of time where it's winnable fixtures, let's say, he sometimes doesn't get it right. But as I said, he's learning on the job, and all the Fulham fans are right behind him in a moment.
Yeah, I think he's doing an okay job outside looking in. I don't want to pretend that I follow Fulham, every week and I just look at the results. But I think they did well to, keep him in there, don't rock the boat, especially with the quick turnover of managers you had with Ivanovic, then Ranieri. So, yeah, it's good to see him doing all right. He was actually the last player I got on the back of a Newcastle shirt, and then we sold him straight away. So, yeah, that's why I don't get names on the back of shirts anymore. That, and I'm, 30 years old, but, we move on. We digress. So another connection between Newcastle and Fulham at this moment in time, a loose one, but Alexander Mitrovic a player who, you know, we put on loan to you guys. You subsequently then signed him. He scored a lot of goals for you guys when you were in the Premier League previously. He scored a lot of goals last season, helping you get back up. But recently, especially since that international break, he hasn't played that much. And has it brought a different change to your style of play? I mean, you've got some positive results, the 1-1 at Liverpool. You know, you beat Leicester. I mean, you went humbled by Manchester City. What do you think of Alexander Mitrovic? And do you think you'd play better without him starting?
I think Mitrovic, over the last few years, has been a player where no matter the situation, is going to be starting for us. But I feel like it's quite different now. I feel like he's there to work in certain situations as opposed to he is our main focal point and we're rubbish around. And we've never really actually been that bad when he's not been in the side. Our record ever since he joined the club without him in the side, we've probably only lost maybe 1, possibly 2 games. And I think it's just when he's on the pitch, it does force you to play a certain style. And I think against Brighton, we could have used him on the pitch for a bit more of the game just because we were playing long balls up and, you know, Cavalier and Lookman aren't exactly target men up there. They're more, you know, running behind. And so Mitrovic, I think his role at the club is changing slightly. He's going to be the first name on the team sheet every single week, but he has got a big part to play. And, you know, he scored, you know, near enough a goal every 2 games for Fulham so far in his career. So he's definitely a big talisman. And I think as I said, he's got a big part to play. So I just think it's a bit of a different role where we're going to be using different attacking trios for different games. You know, for example, in the Liverpool game, I don't think it would have worked because we were making those darting runs in behind with the likes of Lookman, Cavallero, Bobby Decordova-Reid, Loftus-Cheek kind of holding the ball up and playing these balls out. And so I think in games like last night against Brighton and against teams who are in and around us in the table, where we're going to have a bit more of the ball, you know, we're not going to have 30% possession, we're going to have more, you know, 40, 50, 60%. I think he's going to be critical to us just holding the ball up and allow the likes of Lookman to play. But it's going to be interesting to see how he sort of slots in because he hasn't really played in this new 3-4-3 system that we've been playing in. But he looked fine against Brighton on Wednesday night. I'd say one point is he hasn't been match fit, I don't think, for quite a while now. He picked up an injury towards the end of lockdown going into the playoffs, and he missed, you know, both playoff semi-finals and only came on in the 90th minute and looked like he had half a leg in extra time. So I would say he hasn't actually been match fit for a while. Then obviously he missed a penalty against Sheffield United, which would have won us the game. Then obviously everyone knows how he missed that penalty against Scotland to unfortunately send them lot to the Euros. Yeah, I think that it's just a confidence and a fitness thing from the moment. I think he will come good this season. You know, he was our top goal scorer in the Premier League last time, and I'll be very surprised if he's not up there this season.
Yeah. I mean, it was a player that I was fond of at most of his career at Newcastle. He's obviously talented. He's still only pretty young. But it was just one I think Rafa didn't really fancy him because of, you know, Rafa demands high work rate from all of his players. That saw him get shipped. He scored a couple of very important goals in the Championship when we got promoted, but I think that's why he never stuck around. But you know, he's always been like a little bit of a cult hero. A lot of people want him back. I'm not so sure, but you know, hopefully he'll restart banging in goals for Fulham again, but hopefully just not against Newcastle on Saturday. You did mention the penalties there, mate. We won't talk about it too much. I'm sure you've talked about it till you blew in the face recently. Ivan Cavallero, was it? He saved your hoodoo. He got rid of the sort of the curse against Leicester. Is he going to be your penalty taker moving forward, do you think?
I really do not know. It's Fulham side who's taking the penalty because they say one thing in the press conference and the next day someone else is taking the penalty. I wish they would just pick someone.
Yeah, and that's your job.
That's your job. You take the penalties. Mitrovic has been a penalty taker, but that isn't like his forte. You know, he hasn't always been a clinical from the penalty spot. I mean, he has scored quite a few for us, but I mean,
he missed them for Newcastle a couple of times as well.
Yeah. So, but I also obviously I've seen him miss obviously the one against Sheffield United. I think the penalty situation for us is nothing new for Fulham fans. Like, we've had good penalty takers, but when we haven't had one, we've been diabolical at them. So we've had good ones with Danny Murphy in the sort of 2008, 2011 sort of era. We had Dimitar Berbatov in Martin Yole's reign, and when we first came down to the Championship, we had Ross McCormack. But, you know, in 16-17, the season we lost in the playoff semi-finals, we were like this. We missed so many penalties. I remember at home to QPR, unfortunately, which I think we lost 2-1 in the end. We missed 2 penalties, one in the last minute, which would have got us a point against our local rivals. And it's like, when we don't have that sort of guy who you know is going to always score the penalty, Fulham like, who's going to take this? Are we going to score it? So being bad at penalties isn't necessarily anything new for Fulham fans to deal with.
Yeah, fair play, mate. Fair play. But currently, you're sitting just outside the bottom 3 on goal difference. with the season that we're having, like everyone's getting results, barring Sheffield United. Everyone seems to be able to get a point. I mean, you've even had West Brom go to Man City and get points. You've had people beat people in the top six. Would you have took not being cut adrift at this stage in the season, or would you have hoped for more?
Well, if you said, going into what the sort of the game before Boxing Day, essentially, and we're 17th/18th, depending on the Villa Burnley result in the table, well, yes, we would have taken that. Compared to what we had 2 years ago, I think that we are competitive, and I think that and one thing is at the moment we seem to be hard to beat, which is the main important thing. City, one of City's goals was a dubious penalty, which I think Sterling died for. So we didn't get embarrassed up in Manchester City. We got a point against Liverpool. We won away at Leicester, albeit they've had a bit of a dodgy home record this season. But I would have 100% taken the season we've had so far, just because obviously I would have said going into the Premier League, our actual championship season, if you compare the two promotion seasons in the last 3 years, last year's team probably wasn't as good. But looking at it now, the way the managerial situation is with Scott Parker as opposed to someone like Slavisa Jokanovic, I'd say we're probably more suited to the Premier League this time. So I would have 100% taken our start, because and I don't think it could have got much worse than 2 seasons ago unless we had to start with Sheffield United bad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. You looked at the start you had this season when you got beat off Arsenal. I personally, I've never want to make sweeping statements at the start of the season. A lot of people said, "Oh, they're already down." Football's not like that. But I mean, it looked like you were going to have, like you said, another similar season. But they've just seemed to kick on recently. And when they've got beaten in recent times, I've thought you've played good football as well. I mean, I know it counts for nothing, doesn't put points on the board, but at least there's like an idea, a sort of identity there. That I've enjoyed watching. But we'll move on now to the game, mate. Newcastle versus Fulham, St James's Park. Before we get into the actual game, do you have any sort of like past results that flick into your head when it comes to Newcastle versus Fulham?
I think the first one will have to be this when we went to your place and beat you 3-1. When Ryan Sessegnon at 16 years old scored that brace. That will always just stick in my memory, because as a Fulham fan, it was such a good day. It was Saturday, 3:00. No weird kickoff time. Get the train from London, go to the game. Somehow watch us absolutely destroy this Newcastle side, who were walking the league essentially at the time under Rafa Benitez. And then 16-year-old Ryan Sessegnon scoring a brace. Then we missed a penalty in the last minute, which for some reason Tim Ream took.
Well, that was so cool, because I mean, it wasn't cool. Obviously, I was fuming at the end of the game. You totally humbled us. Tom Kearney ran the midfield. I think he scored on the score sheet as well.
Yeah, he scored, I think, 25 yards out in goal.
I think Daryl Murphy scored for us, but we never looked like getting back into the game. And I remember Sessegnon just running that left-hand side. And then when the penalty came, there was hardly anyone left at St James's Park. But you've got this feeling that it's not any sort of, consolation, but we were watching the 16-year-old kid about to pick the ball up and score a hat-trick. A 16-year-old kid score a hat-trick at St James's Park for an opposition team. So we thought, well, here we go. And then when Tim Ream took it off him, I remember hearing boos from like the Gallowgate end, like a few people booing. And then when he missed, it was, well, we were obviously laughing, but I was thinking, why at 3-1 with a minute to go, why are you not giving that 16-year-old that a chance?
Yeah, when obviously it was obviously opposite end to us, and we were like,
yeah, I sit in the same end. Yeah, I sit in the Leeds end. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on? Why is he going up and taking? But yeah, that sticks out. I think that's because obviously I was in attendance. I've only been St James's Park, I think 3 times. Yeah. I did 13-14 when I think Ben Arthur scored a screamer
right near the end
for you guys. Yeah, right near the end. And I also went to obviously the 0-0 2 years ago. The less spoken about that game, the better. Other games that stick out, probably the year you went down in 08-09 when we scored, because that was the year we finished 7th and qualified, and then obviously got to the Europa League final the next season. Yeah. So that obviously sticks out. And there's also, again, I think it might have been 2004, 2005, or it might have been 05, 06, I can't remember. I think it's 04, 05, where I think you had a billion shots on goal and Mark Crossley was just saving every single shot that came at him. I think Bernard Morte or Steve Malbrook must have scored for us. But I remember one, I remember watching it on TV and he saved it with his face and things like that. But so there's a few memories. But because obviously being in attendance, that Ryan Sessegnon game is definitely going to be the one for me.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to my memories, a lot of my better memories. I mean, we don't have a great record against Fulham, to be honest, and a lot of the better memories. At Craven Cottage with Rafa's last game, and There was a game where we won 1-0 with a Joey Barton penalty, but again, this isn't the fixture that we're talking about. St James's Park. One that what sticks in my head is I think it was a game where we got beat, but was there not a game when Scott Parker accidentally injured Jimmy Bullard? Was that happened, didn't it?
Yeah, that happened up at your place, I think.
We went 1-0 up. I think Parker scored. Yeah. Parker scored as well. With an injury.
I remember that happening. I think we were wearing that atrocious blue kit that we decided to wear that season.
Was it Brian? I think Brian McBride scored the winner. He came from behind, and I remember Scott Parker being all cut up. Glenn Roeder having to have a word with him because he was like gutted that he'd injured Jimmy Bullard, and then he went and scored the opener, and then we ended up eventually losing. But yeah, I mean, I remember a 3-0 victory under Kevin Keegan, and then obviously that Ben Arthur goal. But we've got a bit of a mixed record against Fulham, but maybe we'll talk about the Craven Cottage games another time, because there is a 5-2 in there, but I'm not talking about another 5-2 after what happened yesterday. So the match, mate, what are you thinking? I mean, I know you said you don't know whether you just take a point, but do you expect it to be a tough game?
Yeah, I expect it to be a tough game. I don't think you can ever go up St James's Park. I know there's not fans there this time, but it's always going to be a tough place to go. And it's hard to say. You have played well this season, just not in every game. Like we've seen against like West Ham on the opening day, for example. So you're back-to-back wins against Palace and West Brom. You've beaten Everton. So there is a Newcastle team here which can perform and can get results. It just depends which one turns up. It's the one that was just getting done in the counter-attack every single time by Leeds United the other night. Then Fulham will probably have a good chance. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game just because we're on a good run of form. Yeah. I think we need. It's actually quite good that we've got a continuous run of games here in the Christmas period because there's no sort of week break or 10 days break for us to stop our momentum. We are on a bit of a run, and by a bit of a run I mean just we're not losing every single week. I'm looking forward to this game. As I said, I think it will be a very tough game. I think that it's going to be interesting to see sort of how both teams set up because. The way Newcastle set up against Leeds last night, I don't think he'll set up the same way against ourselves.
It was a surprise, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you will change it up a bit. And then the way we're playing didn't work against Brighton, and I can't see, the likes of Lookman and Cavallero working against someone like Kieran Clark at the back. I just feel like he'll win all the aerial duels. So I am expecting Mitrovic, whether he starts or not, I don't know, but I do expect to have a bigger part to play than he did against Brighton, whether he comes on, earlier than just 15 minutes to go. But yeah, I think the way both teams set up is going to be interesting because I'm expecting both teams to make slight changes, but I do think it's going to be a very, very tight game, like it usually is, apart from the odd exception up at St James's Park. But I definitely do think it's a weird game. It's like I think it's a game where both teams, although a win is vitally important, losing is even worse. I feel like both teams are going to be trying to set up here a bit like our game against Brighton, where both teams are going to be trying their best not to lose, as opposed to both teams trying to win the game.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I mean, right now, the way things are, would I take a point? I'd hate to say that, but it wouldn't be a disaster. Points always, it all depends on how they've come about. If you've got the lead and you lose it, then you're going to be gutted. But the way Newcastle play, I won't reiterate a lot of the things we've talked about on this channel. A lot of it looks like Steve Bruce doesn't have real ideas of what he wants to do with the team. It relies a lot on luck and individual brilliance. We concede so many shots. We concede so many attempts. Doesn't matter who we're playing. And I think I saw a stat today of all the 12 games we've played so far this season, we've never had the majority of possession. West Brom with 48% was our highest. Now, I know possession isn't everything, but it shows you that, I think we're just flying off the seat by the seat of our pants a little bit because, we rely so much on Carl Darlow to be saving shots. And last night, I don't think last night was the worst I've seen Newcastle play this season. I think it's just the same as I've seen Newcastle play this season. But we've been really lucky not to concede 5 in some games because we just afford the opposition so many shots. And I think if your strikers are, game on Saturday, they could get some goals. But hopefully, Callum Wilson can get some chances and we'll see what happens. But if I had to press you for a prediction, mate, scoreline-wise, what are you going for?
I've got to come on here and be positive, so I can't just predict a boring 1-1 draw. I think if the way you're describing it, your team's laying a lot of shots, and if Ademola Lookman and Mitrovic and or Cavallero, Loftus-Cheek, whoever's in the front three is on form, then I feel that we will try and pepper the goal a bit, like we did in that opening 35-40 minutes against Liverpool last Sunday. And I will be positive and see. Hopefully, we can sneak a 2-1 win.
There you go. One quick one, which I'll quickly drop in. I didn't put in my notes. Ademola Lookman, sorry, got my tongue stuck behind my teeth there. He was a player that we actually were linked with to getting for a while, and he's ended up at Fulham. What have you made of him so far this season?
He's probably been our best attacker by a long way. He's just so direct in the way he attacks. He's always looking to take on players, always running at opposition defences. And I think this is the sort of setup that he's needed. Obviously, we haven't really seen him in the Premier League too much. You know, he was sort of had a bit part to play at Everton, but obviously he didn't really work under the Sam Allardyce regime. And then he made his way over to Germany to RB Leipzig, and he's come to Fulham this season. And I didn't really know what to expect. I was like, we definitely need a winger. So it's good. It's good we've got one in Ademola Lookman, but I wouldn't know what to expect. But he's been absolutely exceptional for us. You know, he's just the way he drives at opposition defences. He doesn't sort of faff around with it around the box. He's always trying to create a chance, get a shot off on goal. And yeah, I would say he's probably our most dangerous player that you need to watch out for going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we don't deal with being pressed or run at. So, I mean, I think we conceded 5 last night, and I would still say Kieran Clark was our best player. I mean, he's a solid defender, and so is Federico Fernandez. But we'll have to just wait and see, mate. I mean, I'll try and be positive again, and probably say the same as you. Reverse 2-1. I mean, similar might be similar to the West Brom game. If we can get an early goal, which isn't our business this season really, but we'll have to wait and see, because you will be afforded chances. It's just whether you take them or not. So I'll go 2-1 reverse, mate. We'll see what happens. It'll probably end up being 0-0 again, I'm guessing. Yeah,
hopefully. Although, to be fair, that's 2 back-to-back clean sheets for Fulham, which you can rarely say in the Premier League.
Loving the positivity, mate. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Dom. Thank you very much for coming on. To those of you watching, thank you for being here for another episode of Beyond the Lines. If you haven't already, please like the video, please share the video, and of course, subscribe to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel.